Welcome back to Crypto Asset Catalyst. In this episode, we're unpacking how XRP climbed to the very top of the utility token ranks and why that matters for the future of money. In crypto, hype comes and goes, but utility is what stays. From 2024 to 2025 and into 2026, one token quietly moved from the sidelines of speculation to the center of real-world finance, XRP. Disclaimer: this is not financial advice, for informational purposes only. From speculation to utility, for years the crypto market was dominated by one question: how high can the price go? But as regulators stepped in and institutions got serious, another question became more important. What does this token actually do in the real world? That's where utility tokens come in. A utility token isn't just a tradable asset, it's a tool. It grants access to services, powers applications, or moves value through real economic systems. By early 2024, a few clear categories had emerged. Tokens that focused on programmability, like Ethereum, tokens built for payments and remittances, like Stellar, and tokens optimized for financial settlement, like XRP. XRP's story in 2025-2026 is about doubling down on that last category, becoming the settlement engine for a new digital financial stack. XRP versus EH versus XLM, different tools. Let's set the stage with a quick comparison. Ethereum EEH became famous as the world computer of crypto. It's highly programmable, supports complex smart contracts, and powers thousands of decentralized applications. But that flexibility has a cost. During periods of heavy use, Ethereum can be relatively slow and expensive, with users often facing noticeable delays and higher fees. Stellar XLM carved out a niche in remittances. Its focus is on moving money quickly and cheaply across borders, especially for individuals and smaller institutions. XRP, and more specifically the XRP ledger, was built with a different priority: settlement. It's designed so that large amounts of value can move quickly, predictably, and at very low cost, which is exactly what banks and payment providers care about. On the XRP ledger, transactions typically settle in about 3 to 5 seconds, with fees usually well under 1 cent per transaction. That combination of speed and cost efficiency became a key competitive advantage as institutions started looking for reliable infrastructure. How fast and cheap really does matter. You might be thinking 3 to 5 seconds versus, say, 30 seconds or a few minutes. Does it really matter? For everyday retail users, maybe not. But for financial institutions moving millions or billions of dollars across borders, every second and every basis point of cost adds up. If you're a bank or a payment processor, you need systems that are not just fast in theory, but consistently fast and affordable at scale. By 2024, XRP's ability to process up to around 1,500 transactions per second, with settlement in a few seconds and ultra-low fees, made it one of the most practical ledgers for high-throughput financial activity. It wasn't just about the blockchain being cool anymore, it was about it being useful under real-world conditions. XRPL grows up. DeFi and EVM sidechains, speed and cost are a great foundation, but they aren't the whole story. To really compete in the modern crypto landscape, a network also needs programmability and access to decentralized finance. This is where the XRP ledger's evolution accelerated. In 2024 and 2025, we saw the rise of EVM-compatible infrastructure connected to XRPL. EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, and it's the environment that runs most Ethereum smart contracts. An EVM-compatible sidechain for XRPL allowed developers to deploy Ethereum-style smart contracts while still tapping XRP's fast and inexpensive settlement layer. In practice, that meant DeFi protocols, tokenization platforms, and other dApps could bridge over, bringing programmable features right next to XRP's core strengths. By mid-2025 into 2026, this EVM sidechain environment had attracted dozens of entities across DeFi, real-world assets, DAOs, and launchpads, with total value locked on XRPL-related DeFi rising into the tens of millions of dollars and beyond. The narrative around XRP began to shift from just a payments token to infrastructure for institutional DeFi. Native lending, MPT assets, and ZK proofs. Under the hood, the XRP ledger itself was also upgrading. First, native lending. Instead of relying only on external smart contract platforms, XRPL started to support built-in mechanisms that could enable credit and borrowing in a more standardized on-ledger way. For institutions, having lending functions closer to the base ledger reduces complexity and risk. Then there were MPT assets, or multi-purpose tokens. Think of these as highly flexible representations of value. A single token could carry properties for ownership, yield, and even collateral behavior, making it easier to model complex real-world instruments like funds, structured products, or asset-backed tokens. Finally, zero-knowledge proofs, or ZK proofs, began to enter the picture. ZK proofs allow one party to prove that a statement is true, like the validity of a transaction, without revealing all the underlying details. For banks and regulated entities, this is powerful. It provides privacy for clients and counterparties, while still enabling the kind of verification and auditability that regulators expect. Combined, native lending, flexible asset models, and ZK proof-enabled privacy created an environment where billions of dollars in institutional capital could, at least in principle, move onto or through XRPL-based systems. Real-world assets and the $100 billion milestone. One of the most important trends in this period was real-world asset tokenization, often shortened to RWA. This is the process of taking things like bonds, real estate interests, or funds and issuing them as digital tokens. Analysts and industry reports through 2024 and 2025 highlighted a sharp rise in RWA tokenization across multiple chains, and XRP positioned itself as one of the ledgers optimized for this. By 2025, various estimates and institutional pilot data pointed toward XRP-connected ecosystems handling on the order of tens of billions, and eventually around $100 billion in tokenized real-world value when you include assets settled, bridged, or recorded using XRPL infrastructure. These weren't just speculative coins, they included instruments like tokenized treasury products, corporate debt, and other financial securities. In many cases, XRP served as a bridge asset, helping value move between different tokenized systems and traditional banking rails. CBDC pilots and central bank interest. Another major pillar of XRP's utility climb came from CBDC pilots, central bank digital currency experiments. Around the world, central banks have been exploring digital versions of their national currencies. Some of these pilots and projects have used technology stacks linked to Ripple and the XRP ledger to test cross-border settlement, interoperability, and real-time gross settlement models. For central banks, the requirements are strict. Transactions must be fast and final. Systems must be resilient and secure. Privacy and compliance controls have to coexist. XRPL's speed, low fees, and ability to interoperate with other systems, especially through EVM compatibility and bridges, made it a candidate for experiments involving wholesale CBDCs and cross-border corridors. Even when XRP wasn't the CBDC itself, the ledger and its surrounding ecosystem acted like digital plumbing, connecting different forms of money, measuring XRP at the top of the utility ranks. So by late 2025, how did XRP actually stack up in terms of utility? On the performance side, typical settlement in 3 to 5 seconds, and fees usually under a cent per transaction, put XRP ahead of many major chains used for payments. On the throughput side, support for roughly 1,500 transactions per second gave it headroom for institutional volumes. On the ecosystem side, the launch and growth of XRPL's EVM-compatible infrastructure boosted total value locked, brought in DeFi projects, and enabled real-world asset platforms to deploy in a more familiar smart contract environment. And on the adoption side, financial institutions, remittance providers, and tokenization platforms increasingly used XRP and XRPL as either a primary rail or a key interoperability layer. When researchers and commentators compiled utility token rankings based on factors like transaction volume, institutional usage, and integration in real world financial workflows, XRP consistently appeared at or near the top. Put simply, XRP wasn't just being traded, it was being used. Challenges on the way up. None of this happened in a straight line. XRP and Ripple have faced regulatory challenges and legal scrutiny over the years, especially in the United States, and questions about how to classify certain tokens have not fully gone away. At the same time, competition intensified. Other high-performance ledgers and payment-focused chains rolled out their own solutions for tokenization and cross-border settlement. Ethereum's ecosystem continued to evolve with scaling solutions and roll-ups, reducing some of its cost and speed disadvantages. Yet the 2024, 2025 into 2026 window shows that a clear focus, settlement, speed, cost efficiency, and institutional readiness can carve out a strong position even in a crowded market. XRP's climb in utility rankings was not about winning every narrative, it was about solving very specific problems for very demanding users. What XRP's climb tells us about the future. So what can we take away from XRP's utility climb between 24 and 2025 into 2026? First, the market is maturing. As more capital flows in from institutions and traditional finance, tokens are increasingly judged on what they enable, not just on speculative upside. Second, infrastructure matters. High throughput, predictable fees, and strong interoperability, like XRPL's EVM connections, create a foundation where serious applications can thrive. Third, the lines between crypto and traditional finance are blurring. Tokenized treasuries, on-chain funds, and CBDC pilots show that blockchains like XRPL are becoming embedded in the core plumbing of global finance, even if end users never see the technology directly. As we move beyond 2026, XRP's position as a leading utility token raises bigger questions. Which networks will secure the bulk of real-world value flows? How will regulation shape the next generation of settlement platforms? And which tokens will adapt fastest as institutions bring ever larger volumes on-chain? What we learned today was how XRP provides sub-cent, 3-second settlements to real-world asset tokenization to CBDC pilots. XRP's journey shows what it looks like when a token evolves from speculation to infrastructure. Thanks again for watching the Crypto Asset Catalyst channel. If you found this breakdown helpful, consider subscribing, dropping a like, and sharing this episode with someone who still thinks all crypto is just memes and memes only. In the next episode, we'll explore how tokenized government debt and AI-driven liquidity strategies are reshaping global markets. Until then, keep learning, stay skeptical, and follow the utility.